Wondering how you can become better at running your business? Entrepreneurship can be stressful. There's too much to do and not enough time. If you're isolated in your daily decisions, have no fear. Success and balance are possible. Welcome to the Small Business Answer Man podcast, where you master the art of running a successful business using practical advice from experts who want to help you succeed. Now, here's your host, Gary Wilbers.
Welcome. Wow, can you believe this first quarter of 2023 is going really fast? But you know what? It's about what you do with each and every day. And today's guest is going to help us in that, because how can you take that whole year time frame and make it more convenient? And I'll share more with you as we go. But first, I'm going to ask Brian if he would share with our listeners today, what problem will you solve for them?
Yeah, great question. So we're all about helping people accomplish more of what they want in less time. And that all comes down to execution. The number one breakdown in achieving what you're capable of, Gary, is not a lack of knowledge or information or strategies, ideas. It's always around execution. So we're going to solve that execution dilemma for your
Excellent.
listeners.
I'm looking forward to this conversation, Brian, because Brian Moran is a New York Times best-selling author, executive entrepreneur, and coach. His background as a corporate executive, combined with his experience as an entrepreneur, positions him with a unique skill set to help individuals and organizations grow and prosper. Brian is a recognized expert in the field of leadership and execution. His realization that most people don't lack ideals, but struggle with effective implementation led him to the development of the 12-week year. In addition to his books, Brian has been published in many of the leading business journals and magazines. He's a sought-after speaker, educating and inspiring thousands each year. His client list includes Allstate, Century 21, MassMutual, Medtronic, Paycor, Prudential, Tiffany, and many, many more. Brian is married to Judy and has two daughters, and they live in Carefree, Arizona. Brian, welcome to the podcast. Glad to have you.
It's great being here, Gary.
Well, let's start off with that, with the execution and what you kind of shared in the very get-go of what we want to try to solve. What do you think really stops people from accomplishing more?
Well, our experience is, and when I say ours, I have a business partner, but experience of after decades of working with individuals and organizations is it really is the execution aspect, right? If people just did more of what they know without learning anything new, they'd be healthier, they'd have better relationships, they'd make a lot more money. And so yet what happens for most people is they're chasing new ideas and new techniques, and now nothing wrong with that, but they're only helpful if you implement them. and all these systems and all these processes are sub-optimized for every organization we've worked with and every individual as well. So our focus is really about, driving higher performance through more effective execution.
Yeah, and that makes a big difference, because execution is actually making it happen versus talking about it. And a lot of organizations, and I work with a lot of small business owners and entrepreneurs, sometimes they're so busy being busy, they're busy.
Yeah, that's right. Right. Busy doesn't necessarily equate to effective, does it?
No.
And so it's really understanding the difference and focusing on the things that really move the needle.
Well, let's really talk about it, because you all wrote a best-selling book, The 12-Week Year, Get More Done in 12 Weeks Than Others Do in 12 Months. And I really would appreciate, because I'm sure some people have not heard of it. I think the book's been out now. It's been 10 years. Is that right? 2013. Yeah. So it shows that it's been out there, but I'm sure still people have not heard about it. So share with us what you mean by the 12-week year.
Yeah. So as I mentioned, what we do is we help clients execute. What happened for Michael and I'm a business partner, co-author, is when we started with our clients, we did what most people do, right? We helped them set annual goals and build annual plans, and we broke them down quarterly and monthly and weekly. And people got good results, but we didn't feel they were getting what they were capable of. And we realized that one of the barriers to high performance and effective execution was the annual environment. And yet no one had ever questioned that. But 12 months is just a long time. So it's easy to put things off. You know, I don't know when this is going to air, but we're talking, it's February already. And, you know, in January and February, December looks a long way off. So it's just easy to kind of put things off. And that annual cycle was one of the biggest barriers to people executing at their highest level and accomplishing what they're really capable of. So we said, hey, we got to get out of this environment. And we came across one of our clients was into cycling, was studying the U.S. Postal Team, and came to us and said, hey, you guys familiar with periodization? And I remember it from college days when I was working out bodybuilding. And so Michael and I took a hard look at that, and we said that had applicability for what we were doing. And we pulled out some key tenets from it, and which was really this focus on these shorter timeframes was a key of that. And so, you know, with that, we redefined a year. We said, hey, a year is no longer 12 months, it's 12 weeks. And, you know, to a lot that sounds like semantics. Well, that's just a quarter. You're just calling a quarter a year. Not true. A quarter is a fourth of a whole. The 12-week is the year.
Right.
And so when we operate in the context of 12 weeks as a year, there's a healthy sense of urgency that exists in that. And 12 weeks, Gary, is a long enough time to make profound progress, but near enough where there is this healthy urgency day in and day out. And so you just get more of the critical stuff done.
Yeah. And when you change that mindset, because as I told you, I shared this book with my mastermind members, and we're in the process when we work with them, we're really working in that 12-week standpoint of what do you want to accomplish in those 12 weeks? You may have a higher goal. And I know you even talk about in the book, making sure you still have a vision of what you want in your life, if it's personal or professional in there that you can put in there, but anyone can put it in practice. It's not just for professionals, because it's about executing on what's most important to you.
Yeah. Most of our clients use it for the professional side, but they also use it on the personal side to you know, improve their health or relationships or grow spiritually. Any area that you want to make progress in, 12-week year works really well.
Yeah. And I think that's the big key, is really giving us that chance to really take a look at it. Can you give us a little bit, and then we're going to definitely recommend them to go to the book at the end, but you know, there's always some of those common pitfalls that people fall into or myths that they fall into. What do you hear most when people say, you know, oh, that's only 12 weeks, like you said before? Well, that's only a quarter. You're just trying to change that concept.
Yeah, I think, you know, initially, I think people embrace it. What happens though, is because they've been annualized for so long, it's not like flipping a switch really. I mean, because a 12-week year isn't about taking everything you do in 12 months and cramming it in 12 weeks. It's about working differently. And so there's a set of disciplines and principles we apply. There's a cadence to the 12-week year that when you get into it, changes the way you think, changes the way you operate. And so one of the challenges for people is just kind of falling into this quarterly mindset, which is a different mindset than the 12-week year.
With some of those cadence, what do you think has to change for them to change that mindset, so it's not shoving more in, instead it's executing on what is the highest priority?
Yeah, one of the keys there, Gary, is the fact that you have to realize that you have limited capacity. And so we talk to our clients a lot about less is more. And when I first said that, I thought, no, I hate that, right? More is more. But when it comes to executing and accomplishing great things in your life, the more you take on, the greater the probability that you're going to be mediocre at all of it. Because we all have limited capacity, we have limited time, limited energy, and limited intellect. It's not a slam, it's just the reality. And so it's really about focusing in one or two key areas and making significant progress, because 12 weeks goes by pretty fast. But if we do that every 12 weeks, then all of a sudden, in a very short period of time, it can be life-changing.
And do you see that when you say less is more, that in certain areas we should look at what's most important for us in that quarter, in that area? You know, like in the business side, sometimes the biggest problem they have is, you know, they come back and they've got 10 objectives or 10 goals for the year that they want to accomplish. With your method, do you see it's best to say, okay, which two are the most important that we're going to put the priority on to be able to move forward this quarter? or this 12 weeks to
Yeah,
accomplish.
yeah. See, that's how ingrained that mindset is, right?
Yeah.
Because, and you could argue, well, it doesn't matter, but it does matter because your words are reflective of a mindset, and a mindset of a quarter is, I got 4 opportunities at this. And you might argue that you have 4 opportunities to hit the goal, right? If you're behind at the end of the first quarter, the first 12 weeks, and you got this annual goal, you might argue that. But the fact of the matter is you might catch up, but you can't go recapture the capacity you left on the table last week, last month, last 12 weeks. And that's the difference between where people are operating and what they're capable of. It's not about working harder or longer. And so that comes through focus, though. It's not by spreading yourself too thin. And what happens, because we've been annualized, people do these annual plans and they fill them full of all kinds of stuff because the mindset says, oh, we got plenty of time. I got all this runway in front of me, all this capacity. And one of the challenges with most annual plans, most plans in general, is they're conceptual, not tactical. So you really don't know the magnitude of the work. And then they bring that same methodology and mindset to the 12-week year, right? And it becomes quarterly. So I divide the year by 4. Right. Well, we tell our clients, don't do that because you're probably limiting yourself. I share a story about a client that called me on September 7th and said, hey, I hit my annual goal. And by the end of December, she doubled it. That would have never happened had she taken the annual goal and divided by 4, right? So if you're starting out, you may have to do that as a data point, but we're going to have you look at a bunch of other stuff too. What's working in your favor? What tailwinds do you have? What's in the pipeline? What headwinds are you facing? All of that. Over time, though, Gary, what's going to happen is you're going to base your 12-week year goals more on the trend connected to your longer-term vision than you are any annualized number.
Yeah. And I know you talk about in the book how with that vision, having that really sets the stage because you have the point of where you want to get to, which is so important for anybody. It's the true north or your North Star that's there. Where do you want to really achieve to be able to get there? I kind of thought it was kind of interesting in the book. You talk about some of the pitfalls and success tips. And the number one was you think that measurement is complicated or unimportant.
Yeah.
And share with me what you kind of mean by that, Brian.
Yeah. Well, one of the things, we're talking mindset, right? There's a lot of head trash about measurement, what it is and what it isn't. And partly because, right, you can work really hard and it's not reflected in the measurement. You might not be moving the needle. So it doesn't necessarily recognize your effort or your hard work. The other thing is, for all of us, at some point, measurement's been used to trigger negative consequences, right? Somebody measured something and it didn't happen the way it should, and now you're in trouble, kind of thing. And so the fact of the matter is we got to kind of get over that and just understand measurement as feedback. It's just feedback that helps us make better decisions personally and professionally. Some of it's useful in the moment, some only as we look at trends over time, but we have to have the courage to track it. And so with the 12-week year, we'll track lead and lag indicators, which your listeners are probably familiar with. But one of the unique things about the 12-week year is we score our execution. So we track the results, we score the execution. And the reason that's so important is because we control the actions, not the outcomes.
Right.
And so that weekly execution score is literally the most powerful lead indicator you have. It's the greatest predictor of your future. Right? I like to tell people, if you want to predict your future, look to your daily actions.
Right.
You want to know what your health is going to be like 3 years from today, look to your daily actions. You want to know what your marriage or your relationships are going to be like 3 years from today, look to your daily actions. You want to know what your business, your career, your income is going to be like 3 years from today, look to daily actions, because that's what's creating our future. And so that's why we score that. And then we track the results. And in those 2 sets of numbers, you have everything you need to know about, if you're not getting the result, where the breakdown's at and where to make the adjustments.
Yeah, that makes a big difference, because when you're not measuring, there's no way to know your success of where you're getting it from. And I work with a lot of small business owners and entrepreneurs, and I know they're busy, but that's one of the things I really talk about is you've got to have the measurements in place, because number one, your people need that. Because that makes a better organization and a better tracking that's there. One other that I wanted to share in the pitfalls, or at least talk about it a little bit with you, is you don't schedule a block of time each week to assess your progress. We talked a little bit about that, but the other is getting people to really realize the things that are most important. You've got to block that time, because today with email and really social media and with, text, everybody is available at a minute's notice, and it's creating this reactionary all the time versus being proactive.
Yeah, it's a real problem in our society for lots of different reasons. And a lot of people studying it, the adverse effects of what social media and instant communication is doing. But it certainly is taking our attention away from what matters. And in some cases, it's a genuine distraction. At other times, it's an avoidance activity. It's time for me to go do something that I need to do, but it's uncomfortable, or it's what we call heavy lifting. So, oh, thank goodness someone just buzzed me. I just got a text from somebody, or I better check social media, or I better check my voicemail, or whatever it is. And so really being clear on what matters most. That's why we plan at a tactical level. So we know what matters most weekly and daily, because there's always more to do than you have time to do it. That's the other mindset shift. If you think you can get it all done, you're screwed, because you can't. And the minute you own up to that, then it causes you to realize that, look, if I can't get everything done, then what really matters? And the only way you can determine that, if you know what you want, that's the vision. So there's, as we talk about a set of disciplines, there's sequencing to those before you can ever be effective with your time. I ask people in our workshops, what's the first thing you need to know to be effective with your time? And they'll say things like how much time we have, or what I'm doing with it, and those are important. But the first thing you need to know is, what do you want? That's a vision question.
Right.
The next thing is what matters most. That's a planning question, right? And so there's a sequencing to that before you can be effective with your time. And I really encourage people to take breaks from, the electronic world. Turn your phone off. You don't have to have it with you all the time. You don't have to be checking social media all the time. The world's going to go on. Give yourself some margin, give yourself some deep thought time. Take a breath.
Yeah. I love that, Brian. I really appreciate you sharing that, because for the business owners and entrepreneurs, and in my mastermind, one of the things we do is we set that 3-year vision. What do they want to have accomplished there? And I think that is so key, because you can't get to top of the mountain without knowing how to climb it and what's there, and then putting the planning in place that's there. And I guess my last question is, we got to wrap up and move on, and we'll talk a little bit about the book and different ways that you can work with them, and they can really dig into this if they've become interested, as we've talked today. Is, if someone is hearing you and they're interested, but of course, we've all got those mind blocks, because of course, well, then is this just another thing? What would you share with them to really get them to think about, this changes things instead of just being another thing?
Yeah. I think look at all the stuff you've learned that you haven't applied, and where would your life be different had you applied half of what you learned, or even a fraction of what you learned? And so that's what the 12-week year is about. It's not bringing you a bunch of new ideas. It's helping you implement what you already know. And then as you come across new wisdom, new ideas, new techniques, now you've got a platform to execute it. So we've got a track record of almost 2 decades from individuals to small organizations to large organizations, having a massive impact in a very short period of time. We talk about accomplishing more in 12 weeks than most do in 12 months. It's not just a tagline. We've got evidence of it, right? We helped $1 billion company double their sales in 6 months. It's crazy, right? But it's the same thing for the individual. It's about applying these disciplines. We didn't invent this stuff, Gary. We just packaged it. And then the accelerant was the 12-week year. It was getting out of that annual environment. But the one thing that's cool about the 12-week year, you don't have to worry, does it work? It's been proven in just about every industry and every walk of life. You just got to be willing to get in and get messy with it.
Yeah. And be willing to follow the process. And the one thing I love what you did in the book is you walk through the process. You have ways that they can go through. You've given us kind of a opportunity to offer them a 12weekyear.com/getting started. So if you want to check that out, their website is 12weekyear.com. All the information's there, some great information. I looked at it earlier, so I was prepared because it's been a while since I've been on your website. So I want to make sure I was prepared for it. So they're giving you resources and letting you know that information. And the book, the one thing I really enjoyed, Brian, is how you all broke down talking about the productivity and performance and our challenges there. And then you shared with, okay, kind of the solution is the 12-week year to be able to set it up. And I think it makes it a nice, easy flow, because one of the things we have to do, we have to stop doing what we're doing and implement and put a procedure in, and don't worry about being perfect on it.
Right.
But start the process. That becomes the key. And that's what we're kind of implementing in. I told you with our mastermind.
Yeah.
And we're not worrying about perfection, but we're trying to work with implementation. And, you know, we've had our ups and downs, but we've had some really good success stories with our members that have went through the program. So excited about it.
Awesome. Awesome. Yeah. On our website too, typically we're running a couple workshops every month for $20.23. It's a 90-minute workshop. One's for kind of individual solopreneurs. The other's for folks that are leading teams, where you can get a kind of an in-depth dive on it. So check that out as well.
Yeah. Please go to their website, 12weekyear.com. Look any, all the book is anywhere where you buy books. It's 12-week year. It's Brian Moran and Michael Lennington. So Brian, I just can't thank you enough for being on the podcast with us today.
Gary, great to be here. Hope your listeners get benefit from it.
I'm going to ask you one more question. I always ask every person is, what would be the best business advice you would give to our business owners and entrepreneurs that listen to this podcast?
Yeah, the best business advice I have is execute. Learn how to execute, and it'll change your world. Because now as you come across these ideas, all the things you've been wanting to do, right? The gap is not knowing, the gap is doing. And so just closing that gap, you don't have to close it all the way. The more you close it though, the more life shows up for you the way you want. And everybody I've met is capable of so much more than they know. Thomas Edison said, if you did things we're capable of, we'd literally astound ourselves. So I want you to astound yourself. It's not about working harder, but it is about working different. And so learning to execute, you know, I grew up with cassette tapes and all of that and all the magic of goal setting, and it helped me. But the real magic was not the goal setting. It was learning how to execute. That's when my life began to change.
Yeah. Well, great advice. And business owners, entrepreneurs, I'm just going to leave you with that. What do you need to execute on this week? Instead of waiting the next week, what do you need to execute on this week to make that happen? Maybe it's ordering the book or going to the website and checking it out. But come back next week and we'll have another great guest for you. But remember, what do we have to execute on? What's our highest priorities? What matters the most to us? Maybe it's ordering that card, ordering that flyers for your wife so she's really happy this week. So whatever it is, make it happen. Thanks for joining us. Make it a great day.
That's all the time we have for this week. To continue your journey, head over to smallbusinessanswerman.biz to access the tools and resources mentioned in today's show. If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe and share it with someone who would benefit from listening. That's smallbusinessanswerman.biz. Until next time, remember, when you find the right solutions, your business grows and you get your time back.